Today, I am flying solo for my first ever podcast on my own. I've been inspired to take to the microphone to really tell you about personal development, why I think it works and why it's worked for me. I don't really know where my love for personal development came from, but I definitely know it started at a very young age. I think I was always searching for something, even as a young kid. And I used to write my diaries and memoirs, and I was always pretty deep, to be honest. Always like looking for the meaning of life, even as a kid. So as I grew up, and I'm not going to touch on the mental health side at all. This is purely personal development. But as I was growing up, I was always reading, self-help books from like how to be a teenager to like how to deal with your periods. Like I'd always be reading a book. Anyway, fast forward then, I think the first book that I read that really inspired me was Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway by Susan Jeffers. And then I remember my mum taking me to a goal setting workshop at a library where you literally sat and imagined your perfect day, like the most perfect day, and then thought about all the steps you'd need to do to make it happen. And then as I kind of got older, I sort of thought, well, like all my friends are in debt from university, like $4,000 worth of debt. I've never been to university. So actually, if I'm going to invest in myself, that's like my university education. So I think the first time that I really started to spend on stuff was before I even had OCD, this is going to sound absolutely ridiculous, but I've been to like a counsellor for a broken heart. And, I would always be like looking for the answer, just always looking for the answer, looking for the meaning of life and things like that. So then I think it really began for me and started to be really powerful for me 11 years ago when I set up Make Events. And so I went freelance in 2011, and I had been freelancing for a bar, and they had a business coach, and I'd never had like a proper business coach before. So I got to know this guy called Simon Norrie, who I'm still friends with, and he was coaching the bar business on what it could do better. So then when I decided to actually set up Make Events, I decided to engage him as a coach because I am the sort of person that needs to be accountable. Like I work really well in competitive situations with a boss, if I've got to like prove myself. So I asked him how much it was, and it was £80 an hour. And genuinely that year I'd earn 18k. I don't even know what that works out at a month. But the way that I saw it was, I really wanted to have this coach. So how do I make that happen? So genuinely, I would do, and even up to about 6 years ago, I would do car boot sales. I would sell things. I shouldn't really say this, but, I've had a credit card knowing I can pay it back, because I was like, for me to improve and invest, I need to invest in myself because nobody else is going to. And that coach was absolutely brilliant for the first couple of years of the business. He inspired me to set up Make Events. I analysed every which way and reason. And, I would say he was instrumental in me setting up Make Events as a business. And then other things over the years that happened early on were I started reading Tony Robbins. So I read Awaken the Giant Within. Or actually, I listened to an audiobook because I've got really strong memories of walking around Wilmslow, where I live, when I'd set up Make Events and listening to Awaken the Giant Within. And something about Tony Robbins really resonated with me. And so again, not earning much money at all because I'd just set up the business, I invested in his CD program. Which I feel like it was like about £300. But again, I know that people even now, 10 years later, would go, £300 on the CDs, what are you on about? And it was absolutely brilliant. So there was about 30 CDs covering all different aspects of life with a workbook. I absolutely love a workbook. And I honestly, diligently, in my own time, worked my way through this workbook. And it really made me look at where I was missing and where I needed to improve. And a lot of that was personal as well, that I needed to improve. It doesn't just look at like business or fitness or whatever. It looked at everything. And that really, really helped me. And it's all about like imagining your perfect your perfect life and how you want to be viewed. So one of the things that I wrote down 10 years ago, because I was going to the gym, but like dipping in and out of it. And I wrote down, I am a gym bunny. And that's what I wanted to be known as. And I would probably say now to this day, that is what I'm probably known as, a bit of a gym bunny. So it's little things like that. And then I love that CD. So I then invested in the next one, which was his time management one. So that was another 300 quid. And then I did the relationship one. And that was another investment. And I did these workbooks. And the more I was writing down, the more I was analysing my thoughts and thinking and doing plans, the more things were happening for me. And I wrote down like goals, like big goals that you wouldn't even think about that could happen, like meet Kylie Minogue. I wanted to do a party for Vernon Kay. And yeah, just these things kept happening. And then on top of my own like research, reading and development, I'm lucky enough that when I go to event industry stuff, I see speakers. And I remember seeing Karen Brady speak at an events conference, and something that stuck with me and resonated with me was she said, when I am weighing up a risk, I think of the absolute worst that can happen. And if I can handle that, the worst that can happen, I will take the risk. And I have to say, to this day, that shaped one of the most major decisions I've ever made in my life. So I always say as well, like, when I read a book, I highlight everything, I fold pages, I bookmark pages, and then I write down in another notebook all my learnings from it so I can reference them from years and years to come. Now, when I go to an event and hear a speaker, I put my phone away and I take written notes, because I feel like that really like nails it to your brain. But there might be from one talk or one podcast, like one golden nugget, just one sentence that changes things for you. And I know that because it's happened. So yeah, I guess from like 2011 till maybe 2017, that was my journey. I was reading books, CDs, because podcasts weren't quite as popular then, and lucky enough to go to like different industry events and things I was invited to. And hear like these profound speakers. So in 2018, I came out of a very long-term relationship, and I decided that I didn't want to drink because I wanted to be able to process thoughts and find my new place in the world without alcohol having any kind of blur on the situation. So I decided that I was going to go to like all the events that I'd always wanted to go to, personal development events that I would have felt guilty spending the money on myself when I was in a relationship. So I went to Cosmopolitan, the magazine. I went to their live summit. I went to Harper's Bazaar live summit and seen all these amazing speakers and met the most amazing people. And I would go on my own to London. So at my own expense, go to London. I'd stay in the Travelodge. I'd go to Barry's Boot Camp. I'd go to these events. I wouldn't have a drink. I'd come back to my hotel room, write all my notes. And it was one of the happiest times in my life. I felt so wholesome. I felt so fulfilled. I felt like I was really doing something for me. And I have to say at that time as well, I didn't, the business, I guess, did suffer a little bit because I was really focusing on me. And I'll come to that in a minute when I talk about the wheel of life. Like, where focus goes, energy flows. And I think that, you can't be 100% focused on everything all the time. So then the biggest investment for me at that point was, having been a mad Tony Robbins fan, he does something in London called Unleash the Power Within, and it's a 4-day event, and I thought, I've always wanted to go to it. Now, this is another thing that I do, that if I'm going to go to something like this, I don't just want the cheap seat at the back. I'll always pay more money to be at the front. So I can't remember how much Tony Robbins was for those 4 days. I want to say it was a couple of grand. But I was like, I'm single. I'm looking for the meaning of life again. I want to navigate this new chapter, exciting time ahead in my life. And I need to do something for me. So I just booked it. I was so nervous. I thought, oh my God, it's a cult. Could it be like a cult? And I'm very fragile at the moment, and I'm very vulnerable at the moment because I'm in this new world that I'm not used to. I was so nervous, like sick as a dog, going down, worrying that I was doing the right thing. And it was the best thing I ever did. So that was like April 2018. It was there that I wrote down House of Make, that was the head office I wanted to create. And my focus, so we started off with the Wheel of Life, which is what we're going to do at Anything Is Possible. And my focus was fitness. And I had luckily I'd stopped drinking for a temporary time, but it was definitely not where I wanted to be fitness wise. Relationship wise, I wasn't looking for a relationship, but I was terrified of a new relationship. And in business, I think I was quite financially driven within business, but for my own ends, I guess, because I wasn't maybe fulfilled. I was, focusing on the next pair of shoes or the next handbag. And so I felt like that had caused a bit of divide with me and the team, and that they maybe didn't respect me because maybe they saw that I think when you focus on yourself and on giving to yourself rather than others, that's maybe not the best place to be. So I felt really disconnected from the team. So I really went away and worked on that in these 4 days at Tony Robbins. And another thing that I will always do when I go to a personal development event is I book 1 to 2 days after to stay on my own and write up all my notes and do my learning and create an action plan. And like I say, I would just stay in like a travel lodge or a Novotel and have that time to myself. And like genuinely, it was one of the happiest and most fulfilled times of my life. Now, then we'll roll on to about, I think it's like October 2018. And from afar, I'd always absolutely loved the Girl Boss Rally. I don't know if anybody remembers it in America. And I'd always wanted to go. But again, super expensive. I can't remember now, but I feel like with flights and accommodation and the tickets, it was like $4,000 to get there. And anyway, on this journey of single life, which I'm sure many of you will get, there's a lot of trials and tribulations that happen, and something terrible had happened and I was in a terrible state and very emotional. And I went to London with my friend Denise Van Outen, who you'll all know, and I was talking to her about it, and she'd obviously been through a divorce and a breakup, and she said, you just need to focus on you for now and do all the things that you've wanted to do, and then when you meet somebody, you've done them all. So I was like, do you know what? I've always wanted to go to this Girl Boss Rally in America, and it's in a week. And the next day I booked it. Now, don't get me wrong. I got to because I could only spare a few days off work. I got to the airport. I was literally so emotional. I was crying at the check-in desk with mascara down my face. I mean, what people must have thought, I was literally hysterical. I got to Brooklyn in New York. I cried all night. I then cried to my mum in the morning on the phone, and she was like, should you really be there? Should I be worried about you? And I was like, I actually don't know. You probably should be worried about me. Yes. Can you imagine what that was like for my mum? So I'd been crying all morning and night. I looked absolutely horrendous. But I had to get up because I paid for this bloody ticket. So I needed to go to this event on my own, get to the Girl Boss Rally. I'm walking in, check in. They spot an English accent and they're like, hey girl, can you come on the video? Oh my gosh, I looked horrendous, and they filmed me on the promotional video. But again, now that personal development event was transformative and really not so much in what I learned actually. It was more the fact that I was absolutely on my arse, like really emotional. And I freaking got myself up. I got myself to America. I dressed up and I completely faked it. And I sat through that content being sad about other stuff, but I was still there and I was still present. And that inspired me because aesthetically it was so freaking cool. It had a tattoo shot, which inspired me for anything is possible. And I just felt so proud of myself. And there was one speaker that I saw there called Bozomo St. John. Look her up if you don't know who she is. She's a badass marketing director in America, and she's inspired some of the content for anything is possible. She's inspired Joanne Thompson to talk about living with the missing piece, which I'll come to. So that was amazing, the Girl Boss Rally. And then the last one that I did before lockdown, actually, I'd written as a goal, and if I write down a goal, it's like tattooing it in my forehead. I can't get rid of it, to meet Oprah. And then Oprah hardly does anything live. And just before Christmas, it was like Christmas 2019, she released a tour around the US. And I'd always wanted to go to LA. I'd always wanted to stay at the Beverly Hills Hotel. All these things were written on my goals. I'd wanted to fly business class with BA. Everything was written in my goals. And I messaged 2 friends and said, hey, do you fancy going to Oprah? And we flew in February 2020 to LA. I got an absolute bargain rate at the Beverly Hills Hotel. Had coffee next to Kendall Jenner in the morning. And we went to Oprah Winfrey, and her keynote guest was J-Lo. And again, that conversation between Oprah and JLo has inspired some of the content for the conference as well. So, and then obviously 2020 hit, and I remember being at the airport in LA thinking, why are people wearing masks? It's so OTT. But yeah, so that's like my journey up to lockdown with personal development, and I just love it because I know it works, and I've hit so many of my goals, but not even that. There's quite a lot that haven't hit and have actually changed and won't attempt to hit them, or there's things I've yet to hit. But I don't really mind the fact that I might change my mind and not hit them, because I literally love the process and trying to get there. I find it like so exciting. So I guess what I want to say to you is those 2 years, like 2018 to 20, I really absolutely doubled down on personal development at a time when I could have been, it could have been a really sad time for me. And actually it was, like I say, I can't get over like one of the most fulfilling times in my life. Then obviously we hit lockdown, and I really started to think about this whole mantra of anything is possible, which if you've listened to my interview in series 1 was all built off the back of recovering from OCD. And I kind of just, when I got well, was like, well, if it's possible to rewire my brain, which I did, it is definitely possible to, set up an events business and whatever else. So I just came up with this concept of anything is possible because I was just really frustrated with people putting barriers on themselves, and, barriers, whether that's age, I'm too old, I'm too young, people settling. But I do think we have to go back to this thing as we live so many lives within one life. And, you could be with somebody and think that you leaving them is going to devastate them, when actually, like, if they're with someone that isn't feeling the way that they should be, they're not really going to be happy in themselves, and you should be able to give them a chance of happiness with somebody else. So, people that think, oh, I've never exercised, I never can, I'm stuck in this job, I'm never going to earn more money. Like, genuinely, it is bollocks. The only thing that is between you and achieving what you want to achieve is you. And it's not money, and it's not time. Because I worked out the other day, so I was on a rant of like what I do before 9 a.m. So I am a 5 a.m. girl. And I'd had people say excuses, well, you've not got kids, so, you can get up early. Well, actually, are you telling me if you haven't got kids, you couldn't train yourself to get up and have 1 hour to yourself a day? If you want to change your fitness, there's so much free on YouTube. You don't need money for that. I could go on about it all day. Like, seriously, the only thing stopping you is you and your head. And actually, if you don't really want it, stop saying you do, because like, there are ways and means to make things happen 100%. So, so I came up with Anything is Possible, and it's about empowering people to believe there is anything is possible for them at any age. And the any age thing, I think, came when I was thinking about this before lockdown. My coach at the time, I said, oh, well, I need to do this now because, I'm going to be too old and I'll be irrelevant. And he was like, right, who are your 2 biggest heroes? I was like, Oprah Winfrey, Tony Robbins. How old are they? In the 60s. Okay, do you respect them? Yes. And he was like, so you've got time. And I thought, oh, I actually have. And when I saw JLo with Oprah, she said, it's half time when she turned 50. Let's go. Let's work harder. We are only halfway there. So it just inspired me. And I think, we can live so many lives, and we shouldn't be afraid of leaving jobs, leaving relationships, changing what we want to do, because, we're actually not doing a justice to ourselves if we live half a life within a life. And the chances of you actually ruining your life or ruining somebody else's life by making a change, I mean, like really ruining somebody's life, it's fairly rare. So anything is possible. Well, what a journey so far. I actually didn't realise how not used to this the UK market are, because I think, as I say, I feel really, really lucky that from a really young age I was always searching for something, and so I was always reading and learning and curious, and that's natural, that's not nurture nature, that's just the way I am. But I just kind of, I've realised since the launch of this that people just don't get it, i.e. like, it's too American, it's a bit woo-woo, like, it's boring, it doesn't work. Like, it does, but you have to want it. And I am so passionate that if people could invest in themselves, in whether it's coaching, free online videos, so investing in their time, coming to the conference, like they can 100% make changes. But like genuinely investing time in yourself to get away from your day to day and listen to people that have done the things that you want to do, that is the way that you can move forward. And I'll be like really honest with you, and this will sound so OTT, but there's a events brand that's similar, not the same, it's more business focused in the US that I absolutely love. Love the founder, love the brand. And I paid $550 to have a 45-minute mentor session with the founder of that, because I'm like, right, she's done for 10 years what I want to do. So I can, I could invest in a shitload of marketing, a shitload of paid social. So this is how I always look at it, right? So I might invest in a load of marketing and social to try and promote anything as possible, because my goal is to bring that to life. However, better to invest in 45 minutes with a person that's done it, even though that might sound like a lot of money. Like, you can't get any better than that. So I always like weigh things up. So like, if I'm going to spend this on this, what's this going to give me? Or if I want to spend this on this, what do I need to not do, or what do I need to create to be able to afford it? And I always like weigh everything up. And so I guess what I'm trying to round up by saying is that personal development works. Growth mindset works. It's a fact. But you have to make the changes. It's up to you. You have to, the pain of staying the same has to be greater than the pain that you will have to get through to accomplish something. So just to like be real, if you want to make a change, there's going to be like really uncomfortable and painful things to go through to make that change, but it's what's at the other end. So as an example, starting a business is painful. There's fear, there's ego, there's worry, there's tiredness, there's setbacks, there's people's opinions. Like, there's about 20 negative things that would happen that would make you not want to do it. But through that pain and through that journey, there could be something really amazing at the end. So when I was wobbling over the conference at Christmas, like, should I go ahead, should I not? Obviously, like, my mum and dad were worried about me, the investment that it's going to cost, the stress. I wrote down all the pros and cons of doing it, which is what I'm going to do with people at the conference, and all the reasons I wouldn't do it. And then Joel, my partner, said to me, okay, and listen, it would have been easier for me not to do it, because he'd love to see me not stressed. And he said, think about, let's say it goes well, and let's say you fill the room and it all goes amazing, and that minute you step off stage and what people say to you, how would that make you feel? And I was like, well, freaking amazing. So he said, right, well, there's your answer. So I had to just think, can I cope with everything that it's going to take out of me mentally and physically between now and the 25th of March? And I decided I could cope with that, going back to like weigh up the risk, and what would have been the worst that could happen, cancelling it, having a smaller audience, So yeah, I really, really want people to believe, yes, you can make a change. So you can go to the gym, but the start of it is going to be painful. It's going to be hard. It's going to be shit, and you're not going to see results straight away. Leaving a relationship, whatever the circumstances, is hard. But you cannot live your life settling. So for every change you make, there's going to be hardship, and you have to understand that. And there's no point somebody forcing you to do it. It has to come from you. So yeah, I wanted to just try and convey my passion to you about why it works, and whether it's, with all the free content on YouTube, whether it's reading a book, whether it's doing Roxy's Manifest book, which is ace, by the way, hashtag I haven't been gifted. It's just freaking brilliant. Whatever route you choose, if you want to make a change, if you're unsettled with something in your life, if you're bored with something in your life, if you feel that your life just isn't sitting with you right, and that there's just that niggle, that doubt that just something isn't right, sit with it. Sit in a quiet space, write down all your feelings and sit with it. And maybe you need to not have a drink or not reach for chocolate to numb the pain. Maybe you need to sit with those thoughts without going to your normal numbing behaviors to admit to yourself that there is something wrong, that there's something not right, that there's something that you want to change. And if you sit with that and really admit it to yourself, which is the first step, realize you can change, but realize that there is a lot of hard work to do to get there. But imagine the moment when you do. Imagine when you achieve, because you can, that big goal. Imagine how that will make you feel. And is that better than staying the same? I think so. Anything is possible.